It was once known as the Pearl of the Pacific. For years, Chimbote had been the city at the heart of Peru's fishing industry, one of the pillars of the country's economy. Peru produces more fish meal than any other country in the world, and the billion-dollar industry continues to produce more than 1 million tons of the stuff every year. Fish meal is used as feed for chickens, pigs and farmed fish, and the industry represents about 1.3% of the country's GDP and some 700,000 jobs. But that comes at a cost, says Rómulo Loaiza, a biology professor who's been studying the impact of sewage from the factories.
Here in this mud there is no oxygen. Anaerobic respiration predominates here, which means the organisms which need oxygen have scarcely any possibility of survival.
The sludge is decomposing organic matter, says Loaiza, which dramatically reduces the amount of oxygen in the water and leaves little alive. This once pristine bay used to be teeming with life, says fisherman CRESPIN SANCHEZ.
About 3 or 4 years ago, you could still find a fish, but now there's nothing. All the species have disappeared. You can't even catch crabs under the tires on the beach or by the White Island fishing with a line. There's nothing left.
Back on land, in the southern end of town, residents are furious. They're sick and tired of the persistent smell of rotten fish, the smoke and constant noise from the factories.
Year after year, we've been fighting these factories who have been grinding fish meal. We've got people with pulmonary fibrosis, bedridden. These factories belong to multi-million-dollar companies, and they only think about their profits, not about our quality of life, how we suffer with this pollution.
CGTN could not independently verify that the factories made people sick, but it was clear that several factories operated day and night in residential areas. Here at the southern end of Chimbote, the fish meal factories are right next to homes and in fact entire neighborhoods. The foul-smelling fumes emanating from the chimney stacks are just meters away from where children are warming up for a game of football. All the residents that spoke to CGTN claimed that a high number of people, particularly children, suffered from allergies, respiratory and skin problems. Pediatrician Lorenzo Rodriguez, who's run a clinic in Chimbote for 16 years, said the industry had created, quote, a very high level of respiratory and allergy problems among his patients.
In the hotspots over several years, when there is a lot of fish meal processing, I suggested that they should move their children. I told them, your children are becoming more asthmatic. You shouldn't stay there. That's directly caused by these irresponsible companies who don't look beyond their wallets.
Cayetana Aljovin is president of Peru's National Fishery Society, or SNP, which represents about a quarter of all the fish meal companies operating in Chimbote.
What we know from the data is that the respiratory problems in Chimbote are no higher than the respiratory problems in other places in Peru. That's not our data, but the health ministry's.
Aljovin said the companies which belong to the SNP were modernizing their production operations.
The fishing industry is transiting toward a more sustainable route over time. Just in Chimbote, for example, $166 million has been invested in changing toward better environmental management. At the same time, wastewater plants and underwater waste pipes have been built precisely to protect the fragile bay of Chimbote.
This comes at a time when global warming is raising scientific concern about the long-term sustainability of the Peruvian anchovy, the plentiful fish which is the basis of the fish meal industry. Dan Collyns, CGTN, in Chimbote, Peru.